Here are 5 simple stretches and daily movements you can do every day for deep hip pain relief. Whether you're dealing with sciatica, SI joint pain, piriformis syndrome, or you have no idea what's causing it, these moves will help. Let me show you. First movement here is actually going to use a foam roller. I love the Rolga foam roller, by the way. If you don't happen to have one of these, I'm going to drop a link for you in the description that you can grab one. It's going to get into that hip socket just a little bit deeper, but even if you don't have a Rolga, specifically a regular foam roller is going to work fine too, okay? So we're going to sit on that roller with one hip on the roller, okay? You're going to have this hand out behind you. I want you to position one hip right in the center of the roller. And then we're just gonna get used to this position, rolling in kind of the circular motion on one hip. If this feels like it's going well, we can take that leg, cross it up into a figure 4 position, and now we're opening up that hip socket so we can kind of access those deep hip muscles, that piriformis, all those muscles that are holding that tension right around your sciatic nerve. So foam rolling your deep hip muscles like this is so helpful. That's the first thing I want you to do. The second movement that's really gonna help you is a 90-90 hip stretch. I love this stretch. You're gonna sit on the floor with your legs kind of in this kind of wrapped around position. One leg is in front of you, one leg is tucked out behind you. The further away your heels are from the center of your body, the deeper of a stretch you're gonna get. So I do recommend that when you first start this, tuck your heels in pretty quick or pretty tight. And if this is still really difficult to get down into this stretch, you can use a yoga block or even a pillow to prop your hip up, and that will release some of that tension through your hips so you can actually get a good stretch. So either way, it works great. But once you're in this 90-90 position, make sure that your hips are out behind you and you're not slumped under. Sit up tall. And we're just gonna fold your body over that front shin here, keeping these feet flexed, hinging forward, and this gives you that good deep stretch through your hip socket, and you'll feel that release through those hip muscles here. So that's the second movement that I want you to try. Now the third movement might seem counterintuitive because it's not a stretch specifically for those deep hip muscles. It's for the opposite. It's for the front of your hip flexors. But the tighter your hip flexors are, the more tension it places on the backside. So if we can release the pressure and the tension through your hip flexors, your deep hip muscles are gonna be much happier. So one knee is down here. Let's tuck your tailbone down, kind of doing a pelvic tilt to feel like you're getting that deep stretch right through the front of this hip. And we're gonna press that hip bone forward. When you're doing this stretch, really think about squeezing this glute firm. Like really squeeze that glute as hard as you can. Get that added glute activation, which is great for those hip muscles deep in there. And I'm feeling that deep stretch right through the hip flexor. You can add this arm up as a little bit of a reach to add to that stretch. Okay, so that's the third motion that I want you to try. The fourth one is a movement on the floor that's great for strengthening your glute. Okay, it's not a stretch, it's glute strengthening. So you're laying on your side with your ear on your arm. These are called clamshells. You're gonna tuck your heels up behind you pretty far, and then make sure that this top knee is slightly more forward than the bottom knee. We're gonna lay this top arm down on the floor, and once you're set up in this position, we're just gonna pick the top knee up. Your feet stay connected, okay? They don't come apart. All we're doing is picking that top knee up and setting it down. And these small little motions do wonders for firing up those big glute muscles so that your deeper, smaller hip muscles aren't having to overwork. So just make sure that as you do clamshells, that as you lift that top knee, you're not sliding back. Keep that top knee right above that bottom knee. And that's gonna feel like you're working those glutes a lot. I've got one more movement for you that does wonders for strengthening your glutes too. So the final movement here that I want you to do for your hips is just your basic bridge. So you're on your back, feet are planted, knees are straight up to the ceiling. Before we lift, I want you to think about tucking your tailbone under so you feel your low back connect into the floor, so a little bit of a pelvic tilt. Squeeze your glutes and then lift up. By going through those motions, we're gonna make sure that you're actually using your glutes to lift your hips up into this bridge and then set them back down. Now, if you feel like your deep piriformis muscle and even that SI joint are really angry at the moment, make sure that you don't lift really high. We don't want to create this big arch through your body. Just have your hips come up to about level. All right, so we're going to do a bunch of glute bridges, and that is going to really engage the muscles around that deep hip area, which releases a lot of tension on the smaller hip muscles. So all of those 5 movements are really, really effective to create a hip socket that's so much happier. It's not gonna feel so inflamed and angry at you and messes with how you feel as you go about the day. I've got another video that I actually want you to check out. It's a follow along routine that incorporates a lot of these movements so that you don't have to have any guesswork as you're going through. I'll lead you through it. I'm gonna link that for you right here.